Hello, good day. This particular video lecture is the part two of the assignment two. In this particular lecture, we shall be solving further questions related to the assignment number two. Now, look at the question number four. We have already solved three questions in the first part of this series. In that first part, we looked at the basic definitions of demand and supply, and we see how this equilibrium is determined. Now, in the question number four, we'll be looking at the further changes, or we'll be doing the comparative static analysis. The comparative static analysis is the analysis in which we compare the two static points, which means that we are comparing two equilibria. And this equilibrium actually changes when actually something changes in the economy. Like, say, for example, we have got the three different or four different situations here in the part A, B, C, and D of the question number four. Look at the statement of the question number four. How will the following changes affect the market price of the wheat flour? So we should be knowing that we are right now considering a market of wheat flour, assuming that the market is initially in equilibrium. Like, say, for example, first of all, you should know that we are actually talking about a market that deals with the wheat flour. And initially, we are actually assuming that market to be in equilibrium. Like, say, for example, whatever happens, this particular kind of happening may bring the change into the equilibrium. And this change in the equilibrium will change the price and quantity altogether. Now we'll be looking at it, what is happening with this market actually from the initial point of equilibrium. Now look at this question again. How will the following changes affect the market price of the wheat flour? Assuming that the market is initially in equilibrium. In each case, catch what happens to the demand and or supply curves, and the result what happens to the equilibrium price. So you are actually, first of all, should be knowing that we are talking about a market for the wheat flour. And in this particular diagrams, you have to sketch a new curves, and that will show you the change that basically is mentioned in part A, B, C, and D. And you will have to find out what will be the new price. Will the new price be above the old price or below the old price? Or will the new quantity be above the old quantity or below the old quantity? Now, again, you assume that this market to have to be of the wheat flour. Now, what happens if the people consume more bread? If the people consume more bread, it means the bakers make more bread. And when the bakers make more bread, they actually need more wheat flour. And that actually the requirement of the wheat flour actually increases the demand for the wheat flour. Like, say, for example, what happens with the demand curve? The demand curve shifts rightwards. So since this rightward shifting of the demand curve basically bring you to the new equilibrium, which actually you just get here. At this particular kind of equilibrium, like you can see here, this particular equilibrium is above the old price. Like, say, for example, the price actually has risen and the quantity has also increased. Like, say, for example, look at this. So this is Q2. Now, this happens basically because this is happening because your demand curve is shifting from D1 to D2. And why is this demand curve shifting? Because people are consuming more bread. When the people consume more bread, people like the bakers demand more wheat flour. And when they demand more wheat flour, the demand curve should shift to the right. The second situation actually is related to the discovery of the cheaper way of milling flour. Now, this particular kind of a situation is not related to the demand. This is something has to do with the supply curve. Like, say, for example, the suppliers, the demanders are not interested in the cheaper way of milling flours. They are interested in buying the bread or buying some kind of a product that are made with the wheat flour. But the producers who actually mill the wheat flour, who actually are running the wheat flour mills, they basically are concerned about the cost of their production. So the discovery of new cheaper way of flouring mill, like, say, for example, what happens, like, that in this particular kind of a situation, people will be able to supply more. So the supply curve will shift to the right. When the supply curve shifts to the right, like you can see here, what happens that a new equilibrium comes at the price which is below the old price. Like, say, for example, here, and the quantity is above the old quantity. Like, say, for example, this is Q2 and this is P2. Now, if you look at the question number or the part or the situation number C. Now, what happens? What is happening here? Like, say, for example, when we consider that what happens if the other kind of the product become more profitable? Like, say, for example, if the prices of other grains rise. So what actually happens? The supply of wheat flour basically decreases. Why does it decrease? Because people like the farmers may actually grow, and they're just actually forced to grow some other kind of a crop because their prices are rising, so they can get better price. So what happens with the wheat flour, like that wheat flour supply may fall basically when the other grains basically become more profitable for the people like who are growing the crops. Now, the situation D is that the rice and potatoes fall in price. Like, say, for example, if you assume rice and potatoes to be the substitute for the wheat flour, you may assume that, like, the demand, if the actually the demand, the price of the rice or the potatoes basically fall in the price, the demand should of the wheat flour should fall actually here. And the new price will be below the old price, and actually below the quantity will be below the old quantity.